Hi, I'm Timo from Supercritical. Welcome to hear our story here on YouTube. We'll be telling you something about the development of the Redshift 6, maybe about the history of the company, and some technical details, of course, and stuff like that. Today we'll be checking out the prototype 1. That's 5 different physical units, serial numbers 1 to 5, and the first iteration in the development of the Redshift 6. We'll be telling you a little about how these prototypes came about, what's in them, and what's the development process behind these, and what's our horizon for moving to the next prototype, and so on. So these prototypes are basically built to prove the concept for the actual voice itself. So as far as the hardware and mechanicals go, they're built from off-the-shelf components, and hence they look quite, should we say, rough. But basically inside the signal path and kind of the functionality as a synthesizer is really relatively close to complete. There's just a few modifications we'll be doing, but the UI and the overall let's say experience of the product is still under development, and that will be one of our main goals for the next prototypes. So the first sound out of the device we got already in January 2023, very quickly after having physically assembled the first prototype. But then a lot of development work went into making the voice controllable and doing all the usual synthy stuff, receiving MIDI and controlling envelopes and filters and stuff. So the first roughly playable, simple synthesizer, I remember having the first playable sounds out of the synth early in the summer of 23. That would be May 23, because early summer for us Finns is really only starting in May. So there's 5 physical prototype units for each of us. So each of them is in a slightly different configuration for different purposes, like for development versus doing the launch videos versus marketing and so on. So here's my desk where the development happens in my part. It's a bit unorganized, should we say. And of course, one has to touch the grounding bracelet before touching the actual synthesizer. And here you can see the controls. So they work. That's the demo UI. It doesn't look anything like the final will. You can take a little peek under the board or under the UI to see the boards. And as you can see, mine is an open model, so I often need to check something on the oscilloscope and stuff, so it's easy to access. I've got a MIDI keyboard, so I can play some stuff to check if it works, and sometimes I just actually end up noodling for a while. And so I have to confess I have a PhD in theoretical physics, so of course I found the Higgs boson. It's right there on top of my speaker. And you can see Slack on the other screen. That's how we communicate. We're a completely remote team. And yeah, that's about it. You can see a famous Tampere landmark if you know Finland at all from the window. That's the Näsinneula. So that's my access to daylight. So here's Sami's desk. He's our business and project development guy and so on. You don't actually see the Redshift 6 prototype here, basically because there seems to be always one needing some love and care. And while he's a musician too, he's not a synth player, so it's usually him that's missing the synth. Sami is also one of the founders. Here's Jussi's desk. It's a bit tidier than mine. And so Jussi's role is that he's the other firmware developer. In practice, he also is involved with the hardware. And also he's actually gotten to do a lot of other stuff, so he's become a very integral part of the company very quickly. So here's, you can see close-up of his prototype. Near to it, you can see things like the ST-Link programmer used to flash the voice firmware, and there's an analog discovery oscilloscope connected to a computer. we're about to see, here they are, a couple of Picos, Arduino Picos, that are used for to basically substitute for the USB MIDI processor, which is not in the first prototype, but it'll be integrated into the second one. There's stuff like power supplies and such. And here's his screen. It's gonna show us something interesting. Okay, so here's the production testing software's very early prototype, just a proof of concept that he's connecting to the synthesizer itself. So one of the important things here is that we also need to make software that allows the synthesizer to basically more or less test itself in production, so no faulty units get out to the users. So here's Janne's desk. So currently Janne is mostly doing production planning and drawing the schematics and the circuit board for the final user interface board, which will allow us to put all the pods and buttons to their right places. Janne has also physically assembled the 5 prototypes. Basically, almost all of us know how to solder, but he's by far the best and fastest in that, so he's done all of the prototype assembly. So that's about 1,000 components per unit, and the smallest components are 0402 resistors and capacitors, and some QFN packages, so it's actually really small-scale work. He's also composed the launch video soundtrack, which you all liked so much. So here's the answer to the question that was asked on YouTube several times. So here's Heikki's unit. So this unit is a bit better dressed up for purpose of displaying it in public if need be, and also simply that this one can actually be transported from one place to another, and there's a reasonable chance that it won't break, unlike, for an example, the one you saw on my desk. Heikki's role is mostly in marketing and branding, and Heikki is one of the founders also. Most of the launch videos and the sound demos are made with Janne's and Heikki's devices. We take pride in that every sound you hear in the demos is made with the Redshift 6. Of course, there's minimal amounts of reverb and other normal plugins you'd use to glue a track together. Getting back to the development process, this first prototype has actually served us quite well. So the basic voice architecture has actually remained exactly the same, with only minor changes to resistor values and things like that. So this unit is still uncalibrated, meaning that we can't quite do tricks like super resonant filters, which track keyboards exactly and stuff, but this is something we're working on right now. So the UI is still very rough, but as you can see actually from some of the prototypes, we've been trying out various combinations of placing the buttons and what each of the controls do using a label maker and so on. And then we finally logged that last December, just in time to do the renderings you saw in the launch video. The final UI was designed together with Axel Hartmann Design, who also designed the final casing. So one of the big things lacking in the first prototype is that it still takes external plus-minus 12 volt power. So basically we've been using it with various solutions, including like powering it from our Eurorack power supplies and so on. However, we have already prototyped the final power supply, and actually Heikki's prototype already uses more or less the final power supply, which is conveniently located inside the box instead of outside. Thanks for following our story in this first YouTube episode, and stay tuned for more.